When the Israelites were taken captive in Babylon, well, there's a reason why they were taken captive in Babylon. It was because they were mingling with the people from Babylon. They were mingling with the ones that were not following, and they were getting involved in things like magic, all different types of stuff. I don't know if you guys have read the book of Adam and Eve. Now, it's not necessarily absolutely fact, but it gives some good indication of what transpired among God's people and how they were led astray and started getting involved with angel magic, and how it caused them to later and eventually be taken captive in Babylon. And then when they were in Babylon, that's when Kabbalah started, because they were mixing the two. They were mixing the teachings the Hebrews had and the teachings of Babylon, which was angel worship and angel magic and, doing rituals. And so because of that, God punished them, and they ended up becoming captives, being slaves for a long time. But during that time, they picked up even more. Judaism, Kabbalah came out of that. And that's where we see that they make golems and stuff, where they do magic, and where all of that magic came from in the Jewish religion. Now, this is not, if you are thinking that, well, the Jews did this, so it must be okay. Well, no, because they were punished. God's grace left them, these people, for what they were doing. And you think, well, we use the Holy Spirit, right? So what's the difference between magic and the Holy Spirit? There's really no difference, right? Well, there is a huge difference. The angels, when you start reading some of these other books, I do recommend, I'm going to put a link in here. There's many, many more books written that have been considered canon, that have been taken out. A lot of the books were taken out in the 1600s because when the printing press came in, they couldn't print 188 books, I think, which was in the Bible at that time. So they actually just took them out and went to 66. Okay. But a lot of those books were written by the apostles, like Matthew and John, and there's actually letters from Jesus as well that they believe that they are, there's no real argument about that. So there's a lot more literature for you guys to read. For one thing, the book of Enoch and Jasher, and I will put a link. There are so many that give a really good, well-rounded of what was happening with the Hebrews, the humans, the ones that were God's people that came, and the manipulation by the angels to try to make them stray and disobey, because that was the whole idea. What Satan did right from the beginning was always, always, always to tempt us to disobey God's rules and laws. But anyways, when Satan and his angels were thrown out, they had no more connection with the Holy Spirit, with God's force, with his abilities. Although they remembered and they had abilities in their own, the only way for them to achieve to any degree of what they had before, which was the natural flow of God, was to create magic and rituals and potions and these kind of things. Okay, so that's where we see, at the Olympics in 2012, somebody was posting this, and I was watching it. I didn't watch the whole ceremony, but it showed the coronavirus and all the children sick in the beds, and how eventually they come and get your kids. This is a magic ritual that is done, and they do it with your consent and with your energy by watching it and enjoying it and applauding it. And so you become part of it, and you become the energy to make this larger and bigger and to grow. And that's how they get their magic, because they're separated from God. They don't have that Holy Spirit. They are disconnected from that completely. So they use other means to try to force and bend their will, the will of nature to what they want. So this is the big difference between magic and the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit comes naturally and flows naturally to those who follow and those who obey. The more that you show humbleness, the more that God's Spirit will dwell with you. And that comes with the abilities and protection, especially in this day as we're going to be walking in the Holy Spirit. But we cannot think that is magic, because magic is bending and twisting and warping and forcing. And most people, I'm going to say everybody who practices magic, does it with an ego, does it with self being, thinking they've done it. Look what I've accomplished. Look at what I can do. I've been able to practice it, and I'm growing my magic, and I'm growing it, and I'm getting stronger. And look at me. That's what I found when I was in that. Those people carry that arrogance of, I am so great. Look at what I can do. And the difference when the Holy Spirit comes is to the humble, to the little children of mine, to the teachable, to the ones that follow and have a pure heart and an open heart and see that it is from God, that God is blessing you, that He's giving you a gift, but not that you are anything special. It's that you have humbled yourself, that you have turned over and how can I say, the word is missing right now. But magic is different. And because it is different, it is always black. It is always comes with negativity. And it always comes when you are doing this with spirits, with angels, fallen angels, or demons, Nephilim, the fallen, the dead half-breeds. It comes with that. And so you're going to draw in negativity into your life. And you are going to, you're not going to be walking with God if you're practicing magic. And another thing that was concerning, why I'm talking about this, I have seen some videos where people are New Agers that say that they become Christians, sort of like me, but now they're leading people back towards that, saying that that is the Holy Spirit and that is God, and God was, and that magic is good, and that I even heard, I read from a sister, unfortunately, and I hope that she listens to this, that Jesus was a witch. And there couldn't be anything further from the truth when you read what's really, he never was anything like that. In those books, it really does explain there's a lot of information about what happened to him as a child. If you read through, there's the infancy of Jesus. There's a couple of books that were written by Matthew talking about who God was and who Jesus was. And in those, this is the difference. Jesus didn't go to Tibet and meditate and become this great sage or great prophet because he did all of these spiritual practices and stuff. That's not what these books show. And if you're just reading the Bible, maybe you might think, the missing years of Jesus, right? And so people filled them in, and they say that he went here and he went there. Well, in that, it's a really good indication, not absolutely for sure, but Joseph of Arimathea, okay, so the one who took Jesus's body after he was crucified, is believed to have been his grandfather, Mary's father. Jesus did do a lot of traveling, but he would have been traveling probably because We have records that Jesus was in Scotland and I think Ireland and France and all of these different places that we found port cities, port areas where Jesus traveled with his grandfather, Joseph of Arimathea, who was a merchant. He was a very rich merchant that traveled around, had ships, and traveled around from one port to the other. And so Jesus wouldn't have been going to Tibet and with the monks. What he did is he went wherever he went and he taught. Even before, for his baptism, he taught. He told people, in these books, they talk about Jesus having, just being God incarnate and come with the powers and the energy of God. So there's a couple of incidences in the young years of Jesus where somebody tried to raise a hand and was going to strike Jesus, and they fell dead instantly in mid-strike. He had that about him. He was that. He was God incarnate here on earth. And in I think it was the infancy of Mary, it does go to when Jesus was born, and that's a really fascinating book. It talks about that Jesus talked at birth and told Mary, Joseph, and the woman who helped with the birth that he was the Messiah and that he was going to live a certain period of time. Like, read the book. He spoke immediately. And from that moment, even his diapers healed people. And he made things like there was one time where he made a bird out of dirt. They were by the water and he molded into, and it flew off. He told it to fly off and it flew off. He could do everything, even as a young child in these books. One story where a boy fell off of a roof and Jesus was the smallest one and he stayed on the roof. All these boys were playing on the roof and he was the only one, and the parents came and accused him of pushing the boy. And Jesus was just very indignant by that. And he says, well, let's go ask the dead boy. And they went down. And Jesus said to him, did I push you off the roof? And the boy raised up from the dead and said, of course you didn't. And then said, who did? He was performing miracles. And there was also, I don't remember which one because it's been a while since I've read these books. But one of the apostles were raised from the dead as well. And he knew a lot of the apostles when he was younger, when he was in Egypt, in the Hebrew settlement in Egypt, when they fled from Herod, when all of the infants were killed, when they went and killed all the infants from 2 and under. So Jesus didn't acquire this. Jesus was this. He didn't just acquire it when the dove came over and the Holy Spirit when he was 30 years old and was baptized in the Jordan River. He already had this. That was a symbol of that he was the Messiah, because that was a prophecy that was being fulfilled. But he had possessed this. He was this. He didn't have to do anything. Jesus never conjured, meditated, or did any incantations to do anything. He was given it freely. It was part of who he was. If I hope I'm explaining this. So when people say that he is a witch, well, a witch is a very specific thing. A witch all of those terms come from Babylon, okay? All of those terms come from the fallen angels, where they want to manipulate and twist and try to achieve something that they had before when they were in favor of God. But now they don't, because they do not get the Holy Spirit. They do not get that light of God. They don't get any of that. But they have other knowledge, and they have abilities in their own. And so they created magic, which is forcing nature, and they do it in ways that is despicable and hateful, and they use blood, and they use feces, and they use all kinds of things. I'm not saying that any of you guys are, but magic is magic, and it has to stay where it is, completely and separate from God's people. Because that, if you are practicing anything along that is Babylonian, angels, magic, any form like that, you cannot have his Holy Spirit during that time. You will not be. You may have abilities. You may have things that you can do, but it's not being directed by God. It's not being directed by the Holy Spirit. It's being directed by evil forces. And they fool you into thinking that it is good, but they always come with a price. It always comes with a price. Because that's the way magic is. You see, Holy Spirit is freely given. And it only blesses you. But magic is given with a price. And that price may be very heavy. For one thing, it's your soul. Giving up your soul as long as you are practicing it. So anyone, and thinking that I was encouraging us to go and practice magic because I talked about organite and how organite is useful. We still get to use the elements of this world like we do this phone that we're using, or the TV, or the microwave, which is all really dangerous things, and we should eventually get rid of all of them. But we still use technology to benefit ours. Our car, right? It's technology. There's a difference between using technology and things that work and putting magic behind it and doing it that way. So please, nothing that I will ever recommend to you will ever have anything to do with magic, will ever have anything to do with conjuring, will ever have anything to do with anything like that. It is driven by the knowledge of the Holy Spirit and the Holy Spirit alone. And it will never cross that line, because I've been on that line. I know what it's like, and I know what it brings, and it never brings anything good for you, and it will bring your destruction. So please, if you are a Christian and you're looking into these new age, thinking that magic is good and that Jesus was a witch and all of that, please, you are being misled. You're being misled. The Holy Spirit does not work like that. Well, I hope I have educated you on this, and I hope I've cleared up some of this, because nothing that you will, and if I ever do that, please stop listening to me. If I ever start encouraging you to practice magic or do anything like that, then I've gone over to the dark side. I've gone the wrong side. I will never do that. I have been there. I know what it is. God bless you all. Stay in love and light. Talk to you later.